absolute bloodbath. So either you stood in the way of a totally new industry, or you were unable to prevent a huge bubble from forming, which is going to end very badly. And neither one is going to be much of a legacy to look back on.
Joe, I know from our conversations in the past, you view Bitcoin very differently than these 10 or 15,000 other tokens.
But it was hard for Bitcoin under you, though, under your regime. It was very difficult for anything good to happen for Bitcoin.
Joe, within the first few months in the job, we had Bitcoin exchange-traded funds based on futures.
After
but
a
also,
lawsuit.
you recall when I was coming into this role, the whole GameStop events. And that market is so much more critical to you and the American public than crypto. The $60 trillion equity markets. And we have put in fundamental reforms, not only shortening the settlement cycle where you can get your money in 1 day rather than 2 days if you're an everyday investor, but that actually the markets will be more efficient. We addressed ourselves to the second most important market, I would say, the U.S. Treasury market that had had jitters for so long, a $28 trillion market, and fundamental important reforms. We addressed ourselves to corporate governance, that an insider no longer can file a plan on a Monday the same time they have insider information and sell their stock on a Tuesday. They'll now have to wait 3 months. So I'm very proud of the record and this focus that you all have had on crypto. I understand it brings in eyeballs, it sells newspapers and so forth, but the capital markets at $120 trillion, I'm very proud of our record.
Gary, let me go to a different topic. We're going to move way off of crypto, but another topic that has frankly become quite controversial, which is both climate rules, which are now in litigation that you put forward. And then there were efforts early on that I think effectively either were abandoned or you tell me around ESG rules, boosting board diversity, for example. There were some workforce management issues and other things. And the whole country or world seems to have shifted in some way. You may not agree with the way it has shifted, but I, again, wonder how you think about this election, what you think's happened even in this country. Almost every single day, there is another Fortune 500 company coming out with announcements that they're abandoning DEI programs. They're abandoning ESG programs. They're abandoning a lot of the things that were being talked about by this administration and by the SEC as it related to rules and other things that they were trying to put forward.
Andrew, as a securities regulator, I'm neutral to just about all that you just said. We're not a climate regulator and we're not a workforce regulator. We're a securities regulator. But when I came into the role, we had found that of the top 1,000 companies listed on the exchanges, a majority were making disclosures about their climate risks, and investors were telling us that they found those disclosures inconsistent but material to their investment decisions. So we grounded in materiality. We went out, we heard the public, we got tens of thousands of comments, lots of investors who wanted this information to be more consistent and just based on material information. And I've been consistent since my confirmation that we would ground it in just what's material to investors. As you might recall, the back and forth. Right. Yes, some advocates wanted more, but we're just a securities regulator, and I believe that we rightly just addressed trying to bring Gary, consistency.
Even if we could stipulate that it was for disclosure purposes, I'm curious, just on a very personal level, now that you're taking off and leaving the role, what you make of this reversal as it relates to ESG and DEI and so many of these other things that had become almost a staple of corporate America over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years that was developing.
Well, I know in just managing the SEC's 5,000 people, we benefit from recruiting and giving opportunities to the diverse population we have in America, 330 million people, regardless of gender, race, or background. or orientation. That helps our agency. But in terms of a securities regulator, really investors have to decide what's relevant. We did not put forward, we at the SEC under my leadership didn't put forward any disclosure rules around workforce or diversity. We did come in and do something around climate because the markets were already having those disclosures. What I do think is the markets will figure out, the investors will figure out whether the climate disclosure is relevant and material to their investment decisions.
But is it material? It was material a couple of years ago, and it's not now. I don't understand the materiality of it, and whether some investors decide that or whether it's just very gray.
I think, Becky, you're right that things can change. 20 and 30 years ago, companies did not make disclosures about cyber risk. They didn't make disclosures around climate risk. I came into the role and found many, many investors wanted and demanded that type of disclosure, and so we took those two projects up. What might be the case 5 or 15 years from now could shift as well, and I think our great agency is just about bringing some consistency and truthfulness, that people don't lie. Think about artificial intelligence right now. Many companies are sort of puffing themselves up and promoting that. It's important that they not, let's say, call it AI wash, that they're truthful in what they say.
Gary, earlier, just to return, just what I understand completely, what you think is going to happen, or whether your thinking has evolved, it almost sounded like you wanted to separate Bitcoin from the rest of the industry. And I'm wondering whether you're actually warming to the idea of at least Bitcoin, and whether again people are tweeting you that I said you either stood in the way of an extraordinary industry or were utterly unable to prevent a massive bubble. What do you think the future holds? Do you have a feeling on which it is? Do you think Bitcoin has inherent value and is a store of value? Or do you feel that when we look back on it 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's going to be something from the 18th century with tulips?
Joe, it's hard to predict. I think I really do like you, because I know that you think, I'm going to out you, think negatively on many of these altcoins, you, Joe. But
right.
in terms of Bitcoin, we at the SEC have never said it's a security.
Well,
I have not.
What do you think? You taught at MIT. I think you know. I think you got to have some kind of feeling. You've read the books, Bitcoin Standard.
Yeah. I think that Bitcoin is a highly speculative, volatile asset, but with 7 billion people around the globe. 7 billion people want to trade it, just like we do have gold for 10,000 years. We have Bitcoin. It might be something else in the future as well. Right. These other thousands of projects need to show their use case and show that they actually have fundamentals underlying them, or they won't persist, Joe.
Oh, my God, you own Bitcoin.
That's where the public... That's why the public needs disclosure.
That's what it's.
I don't.
You love
I've
it.
never owned.
You love.
I've never.
You love it. You don't like those other coins.
I've never owned any of these, and I've been consistent for 7 or 8 years on this.
Well, now you can't, because you won't be a SEC chair anymore.
Hey, Gary, different lane. One of the other new features of the market, or a market, is this idea of prediction markets. We just had the CEO of Kalshi on the broadcast yesterday. He has brought onto his business as an advisor Donald Trump Jr. I'm curious what you think of prediction markets, and I'm actually very curious specifically what do you think of Kalshi's decision to hire the son of the president-elect?
I have no views on who somebody hires, but capital markets themselves, our great, vast $120 trillion capital markets, whether it's stocks, whether it's bonds, whether ultimately it's prediction markets, are about predicting future cash flows, are predicting future opportunities for businesses that you have on the air. So they're all, in a sense, about prediction markets, and that's why I'm so proud what we did. Some of the reforms we put in place is to have better disclosure, yes, on only that which is material to investors, so they can make their own judgments about the future. That's, in essence, a prediction market.
Treasuries, settlements on treasuries. There's been a little bit of a debate about what's happened, obviously, this fall, about what the timeline is going to look like into the future after you're out of this office. What's your take?
Well, our U.S. Treasury market is the base of our capital markets. I'm very proud of what we did, working with Janet Yellen, working with Jay Powell. It was bipartisan reforms that we put in place to build greater resiliency, lower the risk of our U.S. Treasury market, while also promoting more competition, what's called all-to-all trading. So there's forward momentum. There's still things to be implemented over the next 18 months. But I'd note this, our $28 trillion Treasury market is predicted by the Congressional Budget Office to grow to about 35 or 36 trillion in 4 years. It's going to grow 25%. And so we need these reforms to make sure the markets work smoothly and taxpayers can have the confidence their government can borrow in liquid markets that the international community trusts.
Gary, what do you think the biggest risk in the market is today?
Look, I think we
Make sure to smash
have
the
a
like button.
presidential transition and democracy has spoken, but there's policy uncertainty. There always are around these transitions. Some of those policies will be sorted out over time, but there's policy uncertainties for sure. I have spoken over these last 4 years. There's also pockets of capital markets that have a lot of leverage, a lot of borrowing and low margin, and that's usually in this sort of space between the commercial banks providing leverage to the macro hedge funds in what's called the repo market. And then lastly, I do think that artificial intelligence is transformative, already has affected productivity in a positive way, but there's still risk out there on the horizon.
How much do you think about the shadow banking system in terms of the loan market, which in many ways has moved away from the traditional banks, though there's a connection to the traditional banks?
Look, I think capital markets are best when they're competitive, they're deep, and lots have access. That's what we have promoted at the SEC and the reforms we've done. And so the large private fund market, whether it's private credit, private equity, venture, I think that's been a feature, not a bug of our capital markets. And we benefit as Americans to have large, robust, non-bank provisions of capital.
Okay, Gary, before we let you go, here's the final question. And I asked this of Lena Khan, and I want you to think about the answer. If you could do it again and you could do anything differently, given all of the things that we've just talked about, what would it be?
So you don't want me to just say, come on your show more often, right?
We can do that. We'd love to have you back. And now you'll be
big mistake not coming on.
Now you'll be untethered completely.
Yeah, big mistake not coming on more.
Look. I would say this, Joe and Becky, Andrew, and your listeners. It is a great privilege to serve. I think that we put in fundamental, important reforms on 3/4 of our capital market, the stock market and the Treasury market, measured 90 trillion total. We put in place key reforms on corporate governance that insiders can't sell their stock in a day, but need to wait the 90 days, but also with regard to that they have to give back compensation that they might have for erroneous profits. I think we settled a really tough thing with China. So I'm really proud of what we did. But we're human. We're not going to get them all right.
You're an introspective guy. There's got to be something on the list that you say, you know what, I would have done that. That's the one thing, in retrospect, I wish I could have gotten to something. No?
Look, I would have liked to have got these Treasury market reforms and equity market reforms finalized, and certainly with the courts, and this is important to your viewers, the courts are shifting dramatically, and I would have definitely wanted to have been able to anticipate all the shifts in the court so that we could do things that were survived court challenge a little better.
Gary, I want to thank you for engaging with us over the last 4 years. We hope we're going to get to engage with you a lot more unplugged, if you will, over the next 4, and we look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.
All be well.
Congratulations on
Well, there we go. I wouldn't say anything overly exciting there, but still interesting nevertheless. Keep the shirt. Smash the like button. How do we like the new stream setup? How's it look? I would say it was kind of long overdue. Yeah, I'll be curious if we get one more kind of thing, you know, one more Gary Gensler special. We'll see. Tough on stuff like that because you never really get good questions. I think it's funny that he highlighted utility. That's like the thesis of the XRP community, right? The thesis of the entire XRP community is real utility for cryptocurrency. And look at where that got us. Look at what the cryptocurrencies got to do that had no utility. Do we have we have CPI today, correct? I think we do. What speakers do I have? I've actually got to take a look into that. I knew it at the my dad got them for me a while ago now. They're great speakers. I just can't remember. CPI today? Core CPI? Cool. And I'm guessing that's around 8:30, so we'll keep an eye on that. I've got to test and make sure there's no audio issues quick, so we'll do that in a minute. Guys, make sure you check out the sponsor.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Take a look at the futures right now. We got some green on the screen.
Yeah, guys, just let me know if you can hear this.
The S&P 500 looking to open about 6.5 points higher.
All right, still to come, the breaking economic data we've been talking about this morning. December producer prices are on the way. That's coming in just about 6 minutes' time. We're going to be looking for inflation when it comes to producer prices. The estimate is for a gain of 0.3% versus the 0.2% we got on the last month's readings. Stay tuned. You're watching Squawk Box, and this is CNBC.
By the way,
Awesome. Cool. No audio issues. Perfect. Guys, make sure to check out the new sponsor of the live streams, XP Market. They've got a season's pass that will allow you to earn pretty much tokens by participating and unlock new challenges. So make sure to check that out. You can go through these challenges, unlock different things, earn crypto, earn NFTs, and just learn about how to participate with the ledger. There's all kinds of things on how to deposit into an AMM. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, but there's a lot of cool opportunities out there to kind of get some free tokens. So make sure to check that out. Sponsor of the live streams now. Massive shout out to XP Market. As well as, guys, if you're just looking to pull some data, take a look at things like token rankings and what's happening on the XRP ledger. Looks to be overall a pretty green day for tokens on the XRP ledger. It's great to see this really filling out, guys. For the longest time, I used to go here and there would be like no projects on the XRP ledger, but there's been an explosion of projects on the XRP ledger. I'm pretty sure volume on NFTs is ripping, which is great to see as well. And then we can take a quick look at how the AMM is doing as well. Take a look at AMM trends. Take a look at things like TVL. And this is really the growth of a, oh wow, we're watching a nice uptick in TVL. Take a look at this. Kind of going on that next parabolic move up to 54 million. Wow, XPM to XRP is now the #2 pool. Very cool to see. And we'll take a quick look at DApp rankings. First Ledger, Magnetic, XP Market, XRP Cafe, Sologenic. It's been the top 5 for a while. It's going to be exciting to see what the first application is that can kind of break into that. Take a look at the voting real quick. Doesn't look like there's any new.
Coming up, December producer.
CNBC keeps coming on in the background the way I have this set up to figure out that. Yep, so no new voting coming in yet. Obviously, we're waiting for AMM clawbacks to come in. I believe that's going to add a ton of liquidity to the ledger. $15 million XRP pooled. Wow, 933 validators. Woo! We're almost up to that 1,000 mark. Great to see that. PPI data in 2 minutes. Yep, we will cover the PPI data. I got that queued up on this other screen. So the second CNBC comes on, we'll switch over, get that PPI data. We'll take a look at the XRP price chart after this data comes in. We've got that all queued up as well. I know I finally did some work on fixing up a lot of the my setup for the live streams. Found something to pull most of the chats together, so much easier for me to monitor the chat now. Still working on a couple things, but we're pretty much there. I think it's got a good new feel. And guys, I'm pretty sure my as soon as CNBC jumps back on, I'll throw it up there. So no worries, I'm watching it. All right, we got it early. 0.2. Looks like XRP's reacting positive. I don't know the expectations. We're about to have it up. We're about to watch the break. All right, here we go.
We're just seconds away from December producer price inflation. I'm looking for a clock. Okay, we got a little bit of time before we get to Rick Santelli. There are the futures right now. They have moderated a little, and all could change in about 8.5 seconds. Rick is standing by at the CME in Chicago. Rick, the numbers, please.
Yes, our December read for the producer price index, the wholesale side of inflation, expecting a headline number up 0.4, cut it in half, up 0.2, much lower than expected. It equals where we were in September. To find a lower number, you're going to July of last year when it was unchanged. You strip out food and energy, also on the cool side, unchanged. We're expecting
this is really good.
Closer to up 0.3. Unchanged. You have to go back to July of last year again to get a lower number at -0.1. Now, if we look at X food, energy, and trade, up 0.1, less than the 0.3 expected. You have to go back quite a ways. You're going all the way back on 1/10 to equal November of last year, September of last year, but to find a lower number, you have to go all the way back to May of 23. May of 23. Now, take a step back. We're going to do the year-over-year numbers. Year-over-year headline or final demand expected up close to 3.8. It comes in at 3.5. 3.5, though, in this case, it follows 3%, and it is definitely 3.3 is a little warmer than the rear view mirror, even though it's less than expectations. 3.5, I'm going back to February of last year when it was 4.7. We've had many lower numbers since. If you look at X-Food Energy, we are now at 3.5. Once again, less than expected, but hotter than the rear view mirror. Last month it was 3.4. To find a 3.5 or higher, you're going back to February of 23. And finally, X-Food Energy and Trade up 3.3. This one is the only year-over-year number that's sequentially lower than our last look, which was 3.5. 3.3 equals September of 24, going back to April of 24 to find a lower number, 3.2. So the year-over-year were a bit problematic. Very nice gains on the month-over-month, which is definitely reflected in yield drops. We're at 479 in a 10. We're now at 475. That's down 3 on the session. And when we were at the highs, and actually still right now at this level, should we close here, once again, you're comping back to the Halloween of 2023 on both 10s and 30s. Dollar index yesterday, Joe, it touched over 110 briefly. We'll have to monitor its weakness here based on the numbers we're seeing pushing interest rates down. And there has been a last-minute revision I'm catching, and maybe there'll be some more trickling in. But the X-Food and Energy year-over-year, our last look of 3.4 gets upgraded to 3.5, equaling the current look. Pre-opening equities certainly did love this, and it really goes a long way to explain one of the issues that equities have been bugged by, and that, of course, is higher interest rates. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, big move in that arena, too. Let's get to Rick. Steve Leisman joins us now with more. After Friday, which I know we all want jobs, but it scares people, Steve, if the economy's too hot. And if you can get a number like this, let me ask, my question is, we thought that some of the weather or hurricane could have made the number hotter than what people were thinking. So could this even be better than the 0.2, than the half as hot as we thought?
Yeah, it could be, Joe. And I just want to amend what you were saying and see if you agree with this. We want lots of jobs with low inflation. That's what we really want. Right. And this is a big deal, Joe. And what it does is it shows that some of the things that got people freaked out last month, and I'll mention a couple items, eggs, which were up 55%, I want to say, let me get that right. They're now up 0.5. Fresh fruits and vegetables were up like 33%. And that's up, that actually fell 14%. We had a lot of sort of one-offs that sort of spook things, but the big story might be the trade services, which had been up 0.7%. Now they're down 0.1. This is going to help. I don't know that it tells us anything about tomorrow necessarily, though, of course, the food stuff does follow pretty well from PPI into the CPI. But what it does do is the combined of the PPI and the CPI is going to make people feel better about the PCE. I'm sorry to have to use all these acronyms, folks. What I'm talking about is wholesale prices, consumer prices lead into the Fed's preferred inflation indicator, and that should help things. And look, Joe, the market has not had good inflation news for quite a while now. This is something that's helpful. It shows you that it's not all one direction, but there is still a ways to go. We have to get the CPI tomorrow. And then the big story is going to be this year when we get the January, February numbers, are we going to get those one-time price increases that really drove things up last year, caused the Fed to stall or to wait until cutting rates until later in the year? Maybe this puts some rate cuts back on the table. The market was very skeptical going into this number. Had, I don't know what you want to call it, 28, 30 basis points of cuts built in for the full year. We'll see if maybe that second cut starts to come back as something the market is betting on.
All right, Steve. This is obviously, I don't know. We go back and forth in terms of, oh my God, the world's ending. Oh, this is great.
Right.
But it really is. I mean, where's the 10-year? How many basis points on that? Just right off. I mean, the 2-year immediately dropped. The yield.
Rick had it down 4 or 5, I think. I'll give you a fresh quote here real quick.
All right. Well, that gives us a good look at that. That's probably all the information we're going to get today on PPI. I mean, the numbers were good. Numbers were really good. If we continue to get low inflation moving forward, I mean, that's exactly what we need for the cryptocurrency market. So great stuff there. And then we can kick it over to the XRP price chart. And we can see XRP does have a positive reaction right now. I would assume the market's going to react a little more. The market's going to be a little more interested in the numbers tomorrow. But XRP is back at the top of this range, trying to make some kind of push here. So that's what we'll kind of be watching today. It looks like it's going to be a pretty green day in the market as well, in terms of the equity market, which is always helpful. A lot of people talking about whether or not they believe the numbers. You know, the more I look into it, I think it's pretty hard to do blatantly fake inflation numbers. You might not like the indexes they pull, but you know, there's a lot of independent companies that watch inflation now, and they kind of are pulling, or they're kind of predicting the same thing. So I always give Trueflation as an example, but even if the United States government was like altering inflation, right? There's no reason any private organization would be. And what we can see is Trueflation also is showing a dramatic pull down in the numbers. Now you can make the argument maybe inflation is going to reaccelerate, whatever, but this is real time independently tracked inflation, and it actually had inflation hotter at the peak than the U.S. government did. So, you know, I get the idea that people don't believe numbers, but the more and more private organizations we have pulling these stats, I mean, Trueflation uses Chainlink to monitor prices real time. I think it gets harder and harder to say, you know, I just straight don't believe any of those numbers. Happy I own chickens. Yeah, there you go. No more XRP, just long chickens. Bad drivers. Good to see you, man. Maybe I've just missed your missed your handle, but I feel like it's the first time in a while. Good to see you, man. Yeah, Roger, there must be some kind of egg shortage. I've noticed the same thing. Not a lot of eggs around. Long eggs? Did I see JP Morgan's ETF report? I did. And I'll share it now. Uh, Yeah, so here's that XRP ETF JP Morgan report talking about market penetration of XRP. And I don't know what these numbers mean on the left, the 5.2, 2.0, 2.7, 8.4, 4.3. Oh, is that how much billions would flow in? So, wow. Yeah, 8.4 billion with a 6% market penetration. I don't even know if market penetration is the best stat though, because this entire thing is going to be growing. So, regardless though, it's great to see that JP Morgan now very obviously tracking that Bitcoin or XRP ETF. I paid 5 XRP for a dozen egg. Yeah, that's crazy. They change what they put in the basket. Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things they do. They change the basket for inflation, but also realize that it's also important to realize Trueflation has their own index. So they do their own thing to try to accurately track US inflation outside the government data. You know, I'm not saying there aren't things in the CPI data that I'm like, okay, well, that's weird. Why do they do that? I'm not saying that at all. I think there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical, but the more you have independent organizations coming in and providing their own CPI or inflation data, and the more it kind of aligns with what we're seeing on the government data, I think it becomes harder to just completely say that all of these numbers are fake, right? Kind of like it's kind of like if you're, I don't know, getting timed in a race and no one trusts the judge who's timing the race, but then 4 other people all have their own stopwatch and they clock you going and they don't have any interest in watching you lose or whatever. They're just trying to provide good data. Kind of gets to the point where it's like, all right, well, if everyone is saying this is what happened, you know, maybe we have to think about that a little differently than just looking at the data from the person we were skeptical about. So look, if Trueflation come out or if another inflation metric came out and it was like, wow, these numbers look blatantly fake, that would probably change my perspective a lot. But I just haven't seen anything that really makes me think that the numbers are overly manipulated. Yeah, guys, I can see all the chats and all the comments. It's definitely not easy to pick up on every single one, so I do my best to get to as many as possible, but and I am watching every single one. This is the XRP to Bitcoin price chart we have on the screen right now. Actually going a little green here. Pressing up against some resistance. Hard to know where this resistance really is at the moment. We were kind of hoping to get some breakout on a smaller time frame, maybe like here-ish. Didn't really get much, so we'll see if this ends up playing out like some of the other charts, but still consolidating, still trending upwards, which is great. Just no clear breakout, I don't think, on that chart. So the market overall, a little undecisive. I think tomorrow we'll probably get a much more decisive move by the market. It's good though. Good data. Really good data. Proves we're moving in the right direction. See what else we got going on here. It's just nice. For the first time, it feels like just everything's sort of moving in the right direction. The first time. Oh, this is this is too funny. Take a look at what Mr. I just posted. Mr. I, how did you even screenshot that quickly? Did you go back to pull that? Oh man. You know, you can't get away with anything these days. Flash the XRP price chart and Mr. I's posting it all over X. The move will be complete on the 20th of January. Yeah, we'll see what crypto executive orders Trump has coming in. Mr. I is always on it. Yeah, he is. He lurks in the shadows these days, though. XRP final boss, Mickle. What's the final boss? Why pay rent when XRP fly? You could own your property. Yeah, you can. You can. I don't know. I'm kind of I'd be interested in owning a property one day, but at the same time, I really don't have any interest in overpaying for a house or getting a crazy interest rate or something like that. So we'll see what happens with the property markets. For me personally, I don't know, just not really in a rush. Great when there's like the deal of a lifetime on a house and you can come in and scoop it. You know, you could be paying rent for a long time before it adds up to overpaying for a house with a high interest rate. You could probably, you know, the housing market could drop $100,000-$200,000 average price per house, and that's a lot of rent you could have been paying, or that's rent you could have been paying in the meantime to kind of avoid that overprice. And that's not even to count the fact you'd probably take a pretty high interest rate on it also. Guys, 3,600 people in here, which is incredible. Make sure to smash that like button. Really appreciate that. Also, a quick shout out to the sponsor of these live streams, XP Market. Make sure to go check out their site. Probably the best place around to be monitoring the XRP ledger, seeing everything going on, being able to interact with the ledger, whether it's trading, swapping, AMM pools, meme coins, or just analyzing market data. Great place to do some research and learn more about the ledger. Borrow against your crypto? Yeah, that's going to be a great way to do it. We need rates to come down for the borrowing in the cryptocurrency market, which I think they will. If Ripple is clear tomorrow, don't need inauguration. I think the SEC is going to file their thing tomorrow. So I made a video about that last night. I'm not anticipating any big surprises there. Yep, so couple people now showing that if the SEC's brief is not filed by January 15th, the case is dismissed. Remember last time the SEC like waited to the last minute to file that other brief and we're actually a little late? And everyone was like, "Oh, is the SEC done?" We did that live stream, and then out of nowhere, the SEC came in with their filing. So we'll see. I'm pretty confident the SEC is going to come in here and file something. It just doesn't really make sense that they wouldn't. someone made a good point. There's a lot of lawyers at the SEC internally who obviously have some kind of vendetta against Ripple. I don't think that has really changed at all, unfortunately. Ripple Cross complained they would also need to drop theirs. I don't know if Ripple's is actually due yet, though. I don't think Ripple's is due the 15th. So Ripple will have one also, but we'll see what ends up with how quickly things change. Like, for all we know, all the cases could be dropped fairly soon after Trump taking office. Wow, guys, 3,700 people in here right now. Make sure to smash the like button. It's an exciting time. We're almost through it, guys. We're almost to the other side of what was probably the worst crypto winter we'll ever experience. Crazy to think about that, but I really do think it is going to end up being the worst cryptocurrency drought, I guess you could call it. It was more than a winter that we've ever seen. And it's just nice to be coming out on the other side of that. It's so funny. Whenever someone starts a question with "this question might be dumb," it's normally like one of my favorite questions, because it's almost never a dumb question, and then it's almost always like a question that a lot of people have. So the question is, question might sound dumb, but just started looking into charts more this year. How do you calculate the triangle pattern that you have on the screen? Oh, so that's a great question. I don't do this. Isn't any about any calculations or price targets or what XRP is going to pump to. That's really not what I do. This is really just showing that XRP is consolidating, right? And we're really just trying to figure out when XRP is going to make its next move here. And all it is just, as you can see, the highs get lower, the lows get higher, and eventually the price squeezes. So we can find a lot of examples of XRP, for whatever reason, playing out in a very similar pattern, right? Like right here, highs are getting lower, lows are getting higher, it consolidates and breaks out. So there's been a ton of examples of this on the XRP price chart. And even if you go to like really long time frames, like if we take a look at the entire XRP move back here, you can find, I might have to switch this to the log chart. I don't know, why isn't it let me switch? There we go. Oh, we are on log chart. Yeah, even if you go to like higher time frames here and look at something like this, not necessarily predicting at all like where XRP goes. It's more of just saying, okay, well, it looks like the price is coiling up, and the way XRP moves, it typically makes a pretty big move of volatility after coiling up like that. So I don't really do any price chart like, hey, this is what this next pump is going to do. This is where it's going to take us. Really, for me, all more about just saying, all right, we're along for the ride, and when's that next leg up going to start? It's important to realize these things break to the downside as well. There's tons of examples of this breaking to the downside. I think based off of the bullish developments in the market, a lot of people are pretty optimistic about the price movement of XRP, but it's really just to show, hey, this price chart is really narrowing in on itself. No, there's never dumb questions. Chris Dickens says, hey, Mickle, curious what got you into crypto? Did you start in regular stocks or did you start with crypto? Huge thanks for the solid explanations and continued updates. Oh, yeah, no problem. First of all, appreciate the compliment. One of the things that's always great is like people always reach out and they're like, thank you so much for the live streams and stuff like that. Just smashing the like button and retweeting also does so much, but to see how much people care about the content is one of the things that pushes me every day to make sure that it's coming out and is being produced. But I first got into stocks. My grandpa, who's still very much alive and doing well, kind of said, hey, I was going to leave you this money when I passed. I would prefer if rather than me leaving you this money after I died, you go out and get the money now, but go learn about some companies you'd want to invest the money into. So I went out and did some research, found some companies I would invest the money into. One of those being Tesla, actually. So that was in 2017, I think, or 2016-ish, 2016, 2017. And started allocating some capital to Tesla. We were sitting at a time in that point where it was like Tesla, Amazon, and some other blue chips. I ended up kind of just reallocating most of that to Tesla because it was the company I kind of cared about the most. And yeah, obviously that did really well. That kind of got me hooked on the whole idea of investing. It made me really understand the power of like getting into stuff early, picking winners. Kind of showed me that it's not impossible to do a lot of this stuff. And actually it's pretty common to be able to find pretty good opportunities in the market. So my next thing kind of was a lot of people at my college were talking about cryptocurrency. None of them understood it. They were all buying Bitcoin at that 2017, 2018 peak and all lost a bunch of money. But one of the things that was so interesting to me about Bitcoin at the time was like all these people were super interested in it and the price was crashing like crazy, but like it bottomed and created this really deep base. And I was like, all right, well, like even if this is like, to me at this time, like seemed like a scam or seemed really weird, right? It didn't seem like it made a lot of sense to me. I was like, all right, well, here's this like internet money. What the heck is this? I was like, regardless, it seems like this thing is very volatile and it seems to be done going down. Like it didn't crash to zero. It crashed to like 3K, but it was kind of like, to me, I was like, well, it seems to be slowing down. There seems to be buyers. So I started looking into crypto, kind of turned myself into a short-term Bitcoin maximalist. I was like, well, I understand Bitcoin, but the rest of this seems to be BS. Kind of just started doing some research, kind of realized Ethereum was kind of cool. And then, but didn't really understand. I was like, all right, there's all these like coins, but like, they don't seem like they really solve much, right? Like they're new technologies, but I don't really see what anything's really doing that's interesting. And then obviously when I found out about XRP, it was actually my dad coming to me and he was like, because I had gotten him into Bitcoin already. He's like, hey, what's this XRP thing? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. So I did some research on it. And then we all know how that goes. The second you start looking into XRP, you've given it the time of day. It's pretty easy to see all the things we talk about consistently on the channel. So that's that entire story. So it started with the stocks, started with just kind of your traditional investing. Really got pretty comfortable in all those markets. And it's all just long-term holds. Like all the Tesla shares that I was buying in 2016, 2017, I've never sold a single one. Really my goal is really not to have to sell much. Like I want to look back 10 years from now, 20 years from now and be like, wow, those are some great picks. So I really don't move around much. Typically the only time I really move in and out of stuff is like if the thesis is bad. So I've made my fair share of like losers, like everyone, right? So like some stocks I picked, I didn't really understand at the time. I kind of just threw money at them, thinking, oh, this will be the next Tesla, this will be the next thing, and those fizzle out. You trim them, pick the weeds from the garden, and then take all the nutrients that you're using to support some of the laggers, funnel them back into the winners. Very clear to me that XRP was pretty uniquely positioned. Loved Ripple, and yeah, I would say the biggest thing about that entire journey was just like how much investing taught me about like the rest of the world. Because you learn about personal finance, you learn how to budget, you learn how to save money, you learn how to analyze companies, you learn how businesses are built, you learn how successful businesses are built, you learn how successful products are launched, you learn about macro policy, you learn about micro policy, like you learn about all these different things. But in the process, it's like you get to make money. So it's like not only do you get to like learn all these cool things, learn more about the world, learn more about yourself, but you get to go and build yourself a better future because of it. So all of those things in combination really made me fall in love with it. And then I'm also kind of like a tech nerd. So being able to invest in technology was like great. Yeah, Taylor, I got the lesson to sit on my hands pretty early. My grandpa, when he got into investing, he was buying Amazon during the dot-com bubble, essentially, and his shares went down 75, 85%. But what he did was he just bought the bottom. He just said, all right, well, this thing has crashed. I'll buy some more. And now even those shares he bought at the peak of the dot-com bubble, as many of you know, are in a massive profit. So I don't know. I always kind of looked at it the same way, right? Like there's a lot of pumps in the short term. There's a lot of volatility, but you can't expect anything to change dramatically in such a short time period. It really takes a long time for investments to truly mature. And that's why I always look at it as like in the innings, like what inning are we in? Like crypto, I think we're still in the pregame warm-up. I don't even think the game has started. Things like Tesla, I don't know, like third or fourth inning, right? Little later, but still very early. Most equities, when you get in, it's already the first or second inning because they've already built out the company. What's unique about crypto is you're kind of able to get in before any of this takes place, before any of the build out has happened. And because of that, you have a unique proposition to be able to say, all right, well, I was able to get in before the first inning. I was able to get in the pregame warm up because this thing was trading live the second it was created. It's not like an equity where the company might be around for 25, 30 years before going public, and then it starts kind of that next leg of its journey. God, thank you. Yeah, no, I was very lucky to have him kind of show me the ropes. Very, very lucky. I mean, it totally altered everything I was doing in my life. And I was, to be completely frank, I was very, very different in terms of even how I looked at money. Like I never had any money. I remember when I was in college, I'd always text my little brother. I was like, yo, Venmo me $100 and I'll get you that back like in like a week. Like just give me $100. Like I need it for the night. And I remember I'd always like, I just never had any money, or I'd go to like formals and date nights and stuff like that. And then like it was always like, all right, like let's scrape together some cash to be able to throw this thing together. And it just the whole idea of being understanding all of this stuff a little better and understand the power of compound interest obviously changed all of that. So yeah, no, it had a huge impact on my life. And it's not to say like, and it's definitely not to say I grew up with nothing. Like I was very lucky. My dad was a very successful business person, but my parents never gave me anything. They're like, go figure it out, which was another great lesson because I was just like, well, I'm gonna need to do my own thing here because I'm not getting much. So a little bit of a mix of both. I didn't grow up poor by any means, but at the same point, my dad was like, all right, well, you got to go do this on your own because I'm not going to help you. And that was also great because I would have just followed in his footsteps if he kind of handed everything off to me. Oh, Scotty, steak and eggs. Good to see you, man. Andy, I'd love to get into that. I just don't really talk about my own personal situation that much right now. Maybe in the future, I'll get a little more into that. But I don't know. Even with people I'm very close to, I don't really dive much into my own personal situation. But I love love people, and I think it's great to be comfortable sharing a lot of that. I don't know. Something personal. Maybe one day that will change. Just weird for me sometimes. But I do appreciate the question. Don't think at all I take that in the wrong way. How does the Coinbase judgment affect the Ripple case? It just proves we were right. Halls Balls, thank you so much. Yeah, I like to just do my thing in the shadow, right? I mean, I'm in the spotlight, but also doesn't make much of a difference. Yeah, no, shout out to my grandpa. All right, guys, so that said, we covered a lot of interesting stuff this morning. We started a little early, so I'm going to end it a little early. Got a bunch of stuff I got to get to today. You guys know if we get more on this XRP movement, we will be covering in a live stream later today. Guys, thank you so much for coming. You guys are all incredible. I really appreciate the kind of cool Q&A at the end. I always love to share a little bit about my journey, and hopefully it's a lesson to anyone who has kids or anyone who has grandkids. Like, the best way to get someone involved in, I feel like, building a better path for themselves is simply to let them do their thing, let them take control of their own journey, but let them kind of taste what success feels like. Because I think the younger you can get people to taste what success feels like, the more time they have to learn. Like, a lot of people look at me and they're like, wow, like, you learned so young, like you were so young when you got into all this, which is incredible. But I talk to people sometimes who are 15, 16, 14, getting involved with this stuff. And like, those are the people who are gonna like blow it out of the water. Like, you know, and like, that's the kind of stuff that makes me really happy. Just seeing more young people being given the opportunity, because it's not what any of their friends are going to be doing, not what anyone else is going to be doing. But I think the more you can kind of get them to accept it and find a passion for it, and not everyone will, but some will, the better chance you have of really teaching a lot of important life lessons down the road. And the coolest thing is they kind of teach themselves. God, that's awesome. God, me and my dad used to watch CNBC like every morning together and watch the markets. Awesome, guys. I'll talk to you later. Thank you so much for coming. You guys are incredible. Smash the like button on the way out if you don't mind.